Hi, everybody. I'm Dr. Duke, and welcome to The Takeaway. We are together again with Alex Newman. Alex, Snopes.com. It's really interesting to me that organizations like Snopes.com have this wonderful reputation among the uneducated, at least, or those who don't pay attention. This wonderful reputation for debunking things. But we know it's also a highly, highly politicized and oftentimes dishonest organization. Talk a little bit about your most recent article for us.
Well, thank you, Duke. And I mean, it is shocking dishonesty that we came across in this article. So, to kind of summarize here, we put out an article in the summer of 2017. And what I had found out, I had heard from a contact down in South Florida that there was this school that was at the top of the charts in reading. They were #1 in their area. I think they were in the top 1% in the whole state of Florida in most of the grades. And so I decided I need to find out what's going on here because I think I already know what's going on here. I just theorized that they were teaching reading using proper, traditional, systematic, intensive phonics as opposed to the method prescribed under Common Core, which involves, in the early years in kindergarten, sight word memorization. They're supposed to get lists of words and memorize them instead of learning the sounds. They do the phonics later. And, of course, this is a disaster. And so I figured, without knowing any better, that probably this school down in Southwest Florida, the Mason Classical Academy, which is a charter school, and I have concerns about charter schools. We can save those for another day. But their reading scores were really impressive. And so I theorized that, they were teaching reading properly. So I called up the founder of this school, who was a friend of my contact, and she actually had a copy of Crimes of the Educators, and so she knew a lot of this stuff. And she said, yeah, we teach proper phonics. We do not use sight words. We do not use the whole word method. And so that was basically the gist of our story, that this school had not been using Common Core or the Common Core approved method of reading, and their reading scores reflected that. They were at the top of the top of the top. And every word of our article was accurate, and Snopes never denied any of that. What they did instead was they took, our article got very widely picked up. It was on dozens of websites, maybe hundreds of websites. If you put it into Google, you get like 100,000 results. So lots of different places picked it up. A few of the news articles didn't get everything exactly right as we reported it. And, that happens sometimes. So they picked a derivative article that was based on our article that had made, a very small mistake. They said that the school had ditched Common Core, which we never said. And that had caused the high scores. And, we never said that they had ditched Common Core. They had just never adopted it. And so Snopes used this. They created this elaborate straw man where they said, they picked a slightly false statement from another article that was derivative from ours. And then they added their own fake claims, right? They said that we had said they weren't using Common Core math, and that's why it had improved. In fact, we never mentioned math at all, except to point out that in Baltimore, most of the kids couldn't do even basic math. And so the Snopes basically acknowledged everything we said was true, but then they created their own straw man, and they said the straw man is mostly false, and it was mostly false because it was their own straw man. And the dishonesty is unbelievable. So I encourage people to go read our original story and then go read the Snopes thing, and I think it'll become immediately apparent.
Yeah, that's pretty much standard operating procedure for Snopes, isn't it? Take a claim that is, or an article like ours that is factually correct, that does not overstep its parameters, it's carefully researched. Then when that article is picked up broadly, find somewhere down the line where there's a hiccup, right? Where somebody takes our article and says something a little bit more or leaves a little something out. Snopes then acts as if that's the original article. And as you said, they use it to impugn the whole process. And we know, right, that groups like Google and Facebook and YouTube, who are beginning to censor conservative thought, are relying on organizations like the Southern Poverty Law Center and Snopes as their authorities about which sites get shut down and which don't. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, well, that's a dangerous trend we're seeing now where Google and Facebook and all these want to get involved as arbiters of truth. And they say, well, we're not going to do it. We're going to rely on third-party fact checkers like Snopes, right? And, the Associated Press is another one that just blatantly lies in their fact checking. I was reporting last week on the AstroTurf student marches, and we had reported that George Soros was a leading financier of this. In fact, he was. He financed over 100 of the organizations that were partnered with the Women's March And the Women's March, of course, was the one that organized these AstroTurf marches of the students to the tune of $250 million, $250 million. And so the Associated Press called up George Soros Open Society Foundations. Hey, are you funding these AstroTurf student movements? He said, oh, no, we agree with them, but we're not funding them. And so the Associated Press said, oh, see, everybody who reported that Soros was funding it is wrong. And, of course, everybody who reported that was 100% accurate. The Associated Press was 100% wrong. But so what the Google and the YouTube and the Facebook and the Twitter are doing now by relying on these fake, dishonest, so-called fact-checking services is they're using this to censor the truth and to try to smear people. And I think this example with Snopes is really, I mean, the essence of what we're talking about. It is incredibly dishonest. It is incredibly manipulative. I actually reached out to Snopes to get a comment on this. I let them know I was working on a story. Never heard back. Surprise, surprise. But, it's very, very dangerous, the trend that we're going toward. And I think if people look at just this example, I think it's a representative example, and I think people will immediately see who's telling the truth.
Well, it is alarming. True news, actual true, demonstrably true news that happens to be pro-conservative or support conservative conclusions is now being called fake news by organizations like Snopes, the SPLC. All sorts of liberal activist groups are using that power to shut down those things on social media, on Google, Facebook, YouTube. And yet when you actually have fake news being propagated by places like the AP and by Snopes, what you get here is absolute protection, and we just run with the story. Nobody bothers to fact check the so-called liberal fact checkers, which is how, for lack of a better word, fake news gets propagated. But the dual-edged sword here, right? The two sides of the same coin here are that conservative tinted or supporting news is labeled false, regardless of whether it's true or not. And it's investigated dishonestly. Progressive news like AP or Snopes, when they make news, we not only do we not investigate them, we assume with absolute authority that something that they say is true. And so you have a real catch-22 here.
You do. But, I think this is going to end up being their own undoing. It only takes one time for somebody with knowledge of a situation to come to Snopes and see what they've done to say, oh, my goodness, Snopes is no longer credible in my eyes. And, for a long time, I took Snopes seriously. When I got an email that made a bizarre claim, I would go check on Snopes. Then I came across one that said, wow, that's really dishonest. Then another. And, after that, I knew that Snopes was dishonest. Same thing with the Associated Press, with the New York Slimes, with the Washington Compost. So they are, ironically, hurting themselves. I think they're going to be destroying themselves. We see, a massive movement away from the old establishment media propaganda organs to the alternative media. And I think we're going to keep seeing that as long as they keep being dishonest and trying to mislead their readers.
Well, we know one of two things is going to happen. Either the mainstream media is going to destroy itself and its credibility, or it will coalesce and destroy any kind of article or reporting or thought that doesn't conform with its ideology. Alex, thank you so much. Keep writing those great articles. Once again, Freedom Project Media and the Newman Report has been 100% justified in what we reported, and we stand by that. And so we'll keep doing that kind of work. I know you will, Alex.